The Crusaders and the Knights Templar believed that Jerusalem was divinely mandated territory, and so military conquests there were sacred. Christian Zionists, particularly in the US, believe that the modern state of Israel is biblical prophecy and that its survival is necessary for the second coming of Jesus. Both frame Palestine not as somebody's home, but as a stage for their imagined divine destiny. The Crusaders believed that the world was coming to an end in the 11th century. They thought then that Jesus was going to return and that Jerusalem had to be in Christian hands before that could happen. So in the 11th century, the Pope sends these crusaders into Judea, and these white guys marched thousands of miles and massacre both Jewish and Muslim communities to take Jerusalem by force. They really believed that if they did this, Jesus would come back. The Knights Templar were special ops, an elite military unit inside the Crusades. They're part soldier, part banker, part monk, and they controlled land, wealth, and influence across Europe. They arrive in Jerusalem and they feel this deep symbolic connection, so they set up their headquarters on a Jewish temple. They believe that the land has spiritual power. For them, holding it wasn't just politics, it was about some cosmic plan. But for the men that sent them there, it was about politics. It is not particularly spiritually exceptional, but it is a geostrategic location, and it has resources. You see, the Pope and Rome didn't see the Levant as Holy Land. They knew it was a corridor for goods, for gold, for imperial reach. They seized land from Jewish and Muslim groups. They collect taxes from them, and they claim religious leadership over any competing monotheism. The Pope told poor knights to fight, to liberate Jerusalem for Christ. But in reality, it was expanding Rome's power, claiming the territory in the Levant to control trade around it. Today, Christian Zionism is the belief that modern-day Israel has to be protected and expanded because it plays a key role in their biblical prophecy. A lot of this thinking comes from US evangelical churches. They believe that Jews returning to Israel is part of God's plan. Jerusalem must stay under Israeli control, which is not Christian anyway. Okay. And that once that's in place, that Jesus will return. Same idea, different timeline. The theology has not changed. And this belief isn't just theoretical, it has real life consequences. It's Christian Zionist groups that are funding Israeli settlements in the West Bank. They lobby politicians and they donate to groups that get Palestinians pushed off their land. They also pour a lot of money into archaeological digs in Jerusalem. It's like they're trying to prove that this biblical prophecy is unfolding. But behind the rhetoric, Israel serves a purpose for the United States. It is a strategic military and surveillance outpost. Billions in aid from the US is tied to arms sales, tech contracts, diplomatic leverage. The US uses Israel. It is a loyal ally in a hostile area, helping them contain regional resistance, monitor oil infrastructure, surveil enemies, and project Western hegemony and power across West Asia. The Jewish people are being framed as the central extremist actors, but they are being used, manipulated, brainwashed to justify another country's imperial behavior that does not even serve them. There are a number of core contradictions in this. Number one, Jewish identity being weaponized. Born from historical persecution and diaspora survival, is now instrumentalized to protect a settler state built on militarization. Zionism was originally a Jewish nationalism response to European anti-Semitism. It's now backed by European empires, the very source of the persecution. Just like during the Crusades when religious ideals were used to mask a resource grab, today Jewish trauma is used to silence critique, justify the occupation, and protect global corporate interests that go way beyond Judea or Israeli civilians. Evangelicals today who support Israel are not doing it out of solidarity with Jewish people. They believe the existence of Israel fulfills a key step in their biblical prophecy. Once the Jews are back in their land, several things are supposed to happen. The Temple of Jerusalem will be rebuilt, the Antichrist will rise, and there will be a final world war. The rebuilding of the temple is a highly provocative move. It would require the demolition of the Al-Aqsa Mosque. That would spark global outrage. Christian Zionists see this as essential. They believe once they do that, the Antichrist is going to appear and there'll be a final battle. But it's not a prophecy. It is political theatre dressed as theology. The British settlers in America were not moral guardians or persecuted victims. When the Crown tightened control and said, "Stop murdering everybody," they revolted. Shortly after that, the British abolished slavery and the Americans keep their slaves another century. That was never to liberate any people. It was mercenaries who swapped one flag for another. World War I was a propaganda reset. The Ottoman Empire was getting too powerful. The Holocaust is instrumental in the justification of the creation of Israel. At the same time, the West is closing its doors to take Jewish refugees after the war. Oh yeah, you can go live where we strategically need you, in the oil fields, but you can't live here. Both of these world wars were used to redraw maps and expand Anglo-American imperialism. The Al-Aqsa Mosque sits on the site of the Second Temple that the Romans destroyed. For Christian Zionists and Jewish nationalists, rebuilding the temple is non-negotiable. But if you do that, you have to forcibly remove and destroy what's there. A direct attack on Islam. That's not a side effect. That's the intent. The logic is apocalyptic. Tear down the mosque, spark a violent uprising from the Muslim world, trigger mass retaliation, drag in other Western states and military, create a battleground. Not to usher in the Messiah. This is not about the Antichrist. It is about manufacturing a holy war to justify global military escalation. The religious narrative is a pretext. A war like that gives the US and its allies an excuse to expand military bases across West Asia and North Africa, to seize gas and oil routes under the banner of security, to advance the surveillance and suppression of the Arab, Muslim, global South world, just the homogenous block of brown people as they see it. A war like that will also allow them to force international alignment. A new coalition of democracies can emerge. Western dominance expansion without religious branding. They need a trigger that looks moral to the West. They need a trigger that looks sacred to the evangelicals. And they need a trigger that will provoke a mass reaction from the Muslim world. They don't just want a war. They want a war that can never de-escalate. A war that requires total military, financial, and psychological mobilization. It is the old world empire logic in new costume. The same people who once colonized the Americas, Africa, and Asia and said it was civilization. It is literally what Serge Tankian sang about in 2001. If this is allowed to continue, Israeli military presence will continue to expand until it hits that trigger point where they have enough consent manufactured in the West to really go to war. But they don't really believe it's the apocalypse. They don't actually think the world is going to end. They want to end this world and rebuild one in their own image. Militarized borders, digitized currencies, policed speech, education reduced to just ideological compliance. It's a prison planet run by drones and doctrines. A holy war is the excuse they need to roll it out faster. Five Eyes surveillance, Palantir AI policing, weaponized drones tested on Palestinians, geofencing, digital IDs, biometric borders. This is for your safety. This is God's plan. You were warned.